Hey, what's up? This is Silas. I'm going to be talking about sexual harassment in this, and I'm just have this ongoing theme of different things happening for the same reason. So I'm going to give one example, and then show how different things can lead to that example being told, and how from that one example, different people can consider it to be a different thing. One person consider that to just be a mundane thing that you just say. Somebody else might consider it to be sexual harassment, even though it still is just that one thing. So the example I'm giving here is, let's say it's kind of business. You're in an office space where you're selling something to a client. You have your team set up, and then the client is in the conference room, and then you're going up there. Then maybe a female in about her mid-20s. The male boss takes her aside and says, "Okay, maybe you should unbutton one of your buttons on your shirt and show some cleavage, and that might get these clients to sign on." So that's the situation. So why would a male boss say this? If we discount that the person is just a male chauvinist and sexist and wants to like sexually harass this person, why would the person actually think that's something they can say? I think there's something to say that males are more used to they're used to exhausting all options. They're used to using everything that they possibly can have in the workplace. That is their field of combat. If they're in a workplace, they're used to being expected to try every single possible thing they can do to get the upper hand on somebody else in that field, in that arena. So they also have the lived experience of the power of the female allure. They have the lived experience of being maybe at a bar and seeing a guy without a drink and thinking, okay, I'm not going to buy that person a drink. They're used to seeing maybe a group of females together that are not really that attractive, and they don't really feel I'm going to actually spend any of my money or time on that group of women. Then they're used to seeing a really attractive woman come in and then think, wow, I'm definitely going to spend my money on that person. So they know this. They know sex sells. Women know sex sells. So he could just be thinking, sex sells. I need to do everything in my capability, including trying to get one of my team members to use anything in their capability to get these people to sign on. So it could just be, not, I don't want to say harmless, but it's just coming from that point where it's not necessarily sexually harassment in that kind of situation. It's just a suggestion like, hey, maybe you should use this. For instance, if somebody happened to play lacrosse or something in high school, and these people happen to be or he knows something about the people there who are maybe selling some lacrosse products, he can say, oh, why don't you talk about your lacrosse experience? So that necessarily wouldn't be sports athletic harassment, or being like, oh, why are you jumping back into my past? It's like, no, I know you have a certain quality that these people may find good, so I'm going to try and use the most out of that quality. So that same exact situation, I'm going to give a male hypothesis of why that same request to show cleavage could be perceived as sexual harassment by a female. Now, I'm not going to say that females are not used to exhausting all options. It's just that to what ends? The workplace is not their field of combat. They're used to deciding that the level they reach on attractiveness, the level they need to actually expend that power that they have, because they know they have it. There's a reason they wear makeup. There's a reason they do their hair. There's a reason they wear the clothes that they do. There's a reason they're not like, oh, let's not just wear this single uniform. So they know that the office setting is not necessarily where they're used to actually going above and beyond the general expected kind of levels of things. It's not their field of combat. It's a similar thing, like if you were back at that bar and somebody decided to ask that guy, like, hey, why don't you make a PowerPoint presentation about why I should give you the time of day, why I should give you your phone number. He might be able to sit there overnight and do a PowerPoint presentation and go to that conference meeting and give memorize that PowerPoint presentation and put it out there, because he's used to that. He knows in that field that's what he's supposed to do. In that field, he's ready to go above and beyond. But using that same exact skill set, he doesn't feel comfortable using it, or doesn't feel it's a place to use it at a bar. So I think this is a similar thing where the female is thinking, okay, I should not necessarily have to use my sexual abilities to get me to this level. And of course, there's also the added drive that women are not, despite what you want to say. I read the James Damore thing, and I was talking about like that, how I kind of agree to some of the things. Women and men in general, males and females, have different challenges. So they're thinking, how much is it really going to affect me to spend all this extra energy to get these resources for this company, and it's not really going to change my take-home resources? But at a bar when they're dating in that kind of romantic relationship situation, they understand if I expend more energy, it directly benefits me personally in my take-home resources. So they're more willing to do it in that relationship field than they are in the workplace field. So I welcome your thoughts on this. This is just something I was thinking of, and other people have probably thought of it before. But what do you guys think about that? Especially if there's any female listeners in here, I'll try to share it with a few of them. And have you ever been asked to use attraction in your workplace? Have you personally been in a workplace where you decided to use that and seen some benefits of it? Have you ever been asked to actually tone down your sexual attractiveness at a certain workplace? What do you feel about that? And does it matter if it was a male or female who was asking you this question? Have you ever had a situation where you're like, oh, that seems inappropriate because it came from a male, but you thought after, okay, if a female said that, or the vice versa, have you had a female say something to you and be like, wait, if a guy said that, that might not come off in the same way. So with that thing of the male-female kind of situation, I was kind of thinking, schools should be segregated. This is just a separate kind of idea, but shouldn't schools be segregated? Because I was kind of thinking, when does this thing actually start? These dynamics between males and females, how they interact, how the actual attractiveness of a female could be distracting or could lead to certain things and changes in the behavior of other people around them. The competitive nature both within the females of who's hotter, who looks better, and then the competitive nature of the males trying to get the attention of those females can kind of mess up the dynamics of education, of learning, of the learning environment. Because if you ask some females about this, they'll say that shouldn't be, the workplace shouldn't be where you're having this kind of dynamic there. So if you're not supposed to have that dynamic in the workplace, I kind of think you're also not really supposed to have it in the school environment. So there's one other question. There's something I saw here. There was this related story. It was this thing in Colombia. Apparently there's some kind of island where you can pay a base amount and then you just go there, and for a weekend or something, it's just unlimited drugs, bunch of prostitutes, so relations and things like that. But I was reading the comments section in that, and somebody wrote this. It was a female, she wrote this. I briefly worked as a sex worker, not a prostitute. But I got to know a lot about sex work, and one thing I can say for certain is that old or young, fat or slim, attractive or not, short time or long, one of the few, there's no making it enjoyable, putting up even briefly with a piece of expletive who buys women. So you see this kind of situation. Okay, first of all, the sex worker thing, it's kind of like, I think you can say, oh, I'm in the design field, but I'm not a painter. So prostitute is a specific kind of thing with a design field. Like, actually, I'm in the art field. I was an art worker, but I'm not a painter. So I think that's a kind of specific thing, because it's not like necessarily saying, oh, I was doing actual prostitution, but not a prostitute, or that kind of thing. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking with that. I don't know exactly the particulars about that. For example, I guess a stripper would be considered a sex worker, but not a prostitute. But that goes back to the thing. You see, using the attractiveness to sell your to get the client to pay you more money. If it was in, let's say, a strip club, and the strip club owner decided, like, hey, why are you wearing long pants? Like, you need to wear, like, a thong. But then somebody would say, okay, that's in a sexually explicit, or that's in the sex work field, so that's okay in that kind of place. And then I also have that one video, so I keep jumping around the place. I also have that one video where I was talking about the Cam Newton comment, where he was talking about, oh, it's strange seeing a female speaking about roots, speaking about sports, and I was talking about how female anchors in some places are dressed more provocatively. They'll be wearing pumps, they'll be wearing short skirts, they'll be wearing the makeup. So why don't they just not wear makeup? Why don't they just wear these female suits? Why don't they wear like the pantsuits like Hillary Clinton was wearing, which is closer to what the males are wearing, not wear any makeup outside just the TV makeup that they're wearing, not wear earrings, not wear any of those, and just be like, I'm just here to report the sports. But no, for some reason they feel, if I use some of my feminine charms, if I accentuate these things, it's positive for my workplace. So back to this thing. So this thing, he said, it's a piece of expletive who buys women. I find this to be kind of a negative situation. Why? In this situation, they're talking about prostitutes on this island, and he's talking about this prostitution. She was talking about prostitution in general, saying every male that participates in this is a piece of expletive. It's hard to deal with them. But then you hardly ever get the situation, like, how is it for the females that decided to go into this thing? I do know there's people who get sex trafficked. and do know there's human trafficking in that kind of situation. But how about the females who decide to enter certain fields and use their sexual wiles to get that? There are people out there who do that. I personally have known people that have done that. You probably know some people that have done that. Actually, maybe not say you probably know. Maybe you guys are just hanging out with better people, made better life decisions in your life. So you haven't been around females who have used their sexual talents, abilities, appeal to not as positive and virtuous ends, or to just get more resources. Then I think it's kind of a similar thing where it's just, unfortunately, when you delve into these fields, both the people using it and the people participating in it, it's kind of some unsavory people. So I do understand why these topics of sexual harassment, people talking about the different workplace, I don't want to use my body in this way, I don't want to do XYZ in a certain way. I understand that to an extent. Okay, so this was more of a ramble of a video. I said it was going to be short. It's going to be like 10 minutes, up to 11 minutes now. So I'm going to kind of wind down here. Again, have you guys been in an experience where you felt you were sexually harassed? Whether you're male or female, do you feel it changes if the male or the female says it to you? What are your thoughts on that? And yeah, what are your thoughts also of just having segregated workplaces? Why don't you just have segregated workplaces? This is one thing I always ask people when they're talking about sexual harassment. They're saying men should adjust to this, or X group should adjust to this. They say, why don't you just force segregation? Why don't we just go to a thing where it's like, or why don't you just bring back the traditionalism of staying home? I know it's kind of tough in some places due to financial considerations. People want to live in a location. To live in that location, the cost is so high, you need 2 incomes, or the kind of lifestyle that you want. But why don't you have a situation where people are like, I don't want to be a stay-at-home person because it's boring, or it's infantilizing, or it's just not for me, and then they go to the workplace and then they want to change the workplace. Why don't you just invent new workplaces, find new things? And I might have some thoughts on what to do with that in later videos, later things. So thanks for listening. Sorry about the disjointed nature of this. I've been doing some more scripted things, and this one was kind of just short script and then kind of going off head. But yeah, let me know what you think. Till next video, this is Silas. Like, share, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit the notification bell, and goodbye.